The popular image is a caricature, isn't it? A monstrous ghoul hunched under a full moon, laughing madly as lightning splits the sky above a tilted tombstone. That's the stuff of penny dreadfuls and nightmares. But the truth, as always, is far more complex and far more chillingly pragmatic. You're not a monster, you're a tradesman, a purveyor of a much-needed, if illicit, commodity. Your work isn't done out of madness, but for cold, hard shillings in the palm of your hand. Welcome to Epoch Immersion. Today we peel back the coffin lid on what it was really like to be a resurrectionist, a body snatcher, in the anatomical hothouse of 1830s Edinburgh. The city is a paradox, the Athens of the North, a beacon of enlightenment where brilliant surgeons like Robert Knox are pushing the boundaries of medicine. But their gleaming scalpels and life-saving knowledge require one thing: fresh specimens. And that is where you come in. Forget the ghoulish laughter. Think of the muffled scrape of wood on wet earth. Your tools aren't the stuff of nightmares. They're the mundane instruments of hard labor. A coil of rope, a canvas sack, and your most trusted friend. A sturdy, blunted wooden shovel, its handle worn smooth by your own desperate grip. This isn't about desecration for its own sake. This is a grim, essential transaction in the great, bloody marketplace of progress. So why would you choose this life? Why risk the hangman's noose and eternal damnation? The answer, like the city's fog, is thick but simple: survival. A skilled laborer in Edinburgh, if he's lucky, earns perhaps 20 shillings a week. That's a pound. It's enough to keep you from starving, just. But one successful night's work for you, one fresh subject delivered to the back door of the anatomy school, that fetches between 8 and 10 pounds. 10 weeks of back-breaking, legitimate work earned in 4 hours of heart-stopping illicit terror. That money is a tangible thing. It's the weight of coins in your pocket, heavy enough to silence the gnawing in your gut. It's the difference between a damp cellar shared with rats and a room with a fire. This isn't just a job, it's a lifeline. And with it comes a strange, inverted form of status. You are a pariah, a creature of the night, yet you are also a vital supplier to the city's elite. You meet with gentlemen of science, men who wouldn't give you the time of day on the street, but who greet you with quiet urgency in the dead of night. Their hands are clean, their coats are fine, but they need what your filthy hands can provide. You are their ghoulish necessity. Perhaps you even tell yourself you're performing a service. You see the children with rickets, the mothers dying in childbirth, the cholera that sweeps through the slums, and you know the surgeons can't learn to fix the living without studying the dead. That blunted wooden shovel of yours doesn't just unearth corpses, it unearths knowledge. At least, that's what you tell yourself when you wake up screaming. But the weight of those coins is matched by the weight of constant gnawing fear. This isn't a simple trade. It's a nightly war fought on multiple fronts. First, there's the law. While dissecting a corpse isn't strictly illegal, stealing one is. Get caught and you're looking at a hefty fine, a public flogging, or even transportation to the penal colonies in Australia, a sentence many consider worse than death. Then there are the more immediate dangers. Cemeteries are no longer peaceful resting places, they are fortresses. Families of the recently deceased stand guard over fresh graves armed with cudgels and pistols. Watchmen patrol the grounds with lanterns and fierce dogs. Iron cages called mort safes are erected over coffins, and heavy stone vaults are built, all to thwart you. Every shadow is a potential enemy. Every snapping twig is an alarm bell in your soul. The work itself is backbreaking and brutal. You dig in freezing rain, the damp seeping into your bones, your fingers raw and bleeding. And there's a terrible irony to your tool of choice, that blunted wooden shovel. You use wood, not iron, because it makes less noise scraping against a stone or a coffin lid. A small detail that can mean the difference between freedom and the gallows. But one rotten plank in a coffin, one misstep in the dark, and you could be trapped in the very grave you sought to plunder. The greatest cost, however, is the one paid by your soul. You become a phantom, shunned by day, feared by night. You see suspicion in every neighbor's eye. You drink to forget the faces you unearth, but they stare back at you from the bottom of your glass. Your life is a study in contrasts, a stark division between day and night. Daylight is your prison. You keep to your damp, cramped lodgings, a room that perpetually smells of wet earth and cheap gin. You sleep, but it's a fitful, shallow rest, punctuated by the sounds of the living city above. Food is a simple affair, a lump of stale bread, perhaps some watery oatmeal. There's no appetite for more. During these long, agonizing hours, your constant companion is that wooden shovel, now a source of incredible anxiety. It's propped in a dark corner, hidden under a pile of rags, but to you it feels as conspicuous as a gallows. A nosy landlord, a chance visit, could be your undoing. Night is when you truly live, but your work doesn't begin in the graveyard. It begins in the taverns and closes of the old town. This is a business, and it requires intelligence. You become an expert listener, a connoisseur of gossip. You learn to identify the mournful toll of a pauper's bell, a burial with no family to stand vigil. You cultivate sources, slipping a few pennies to a disgruntled sexton for a tip-off about a fresh plot, or buying an undertaker's assistant a pint in exchange for information on the coffin's quality. This is the real grind, the scouting, the planning, the constant risk assessment. The act of digging is merely the violent conclusion to a long, tense game of chess. And if you're a viewer who appreciates the grim strategies of history, consider subscribing to Epoch Immersion. We dig deep into the topics others are too afraid to touch. You think you know how it's done, don't you? A frantic brute force excavation, earth flying everywhere, the entire coffin heaved out of the ground. That's the amateur's way, the way to get caught. You are a professional, and your craft is one of grim efficiency and anatomical precision. You don't dig up the coffin. You never dig up the whole coffin. Time is your enemy, and silence is your shield. Here is the secret of your trade. You only dig at the head of the grave, a shaft about 5 feet deep and 3 feet wide. You carefully remove the sod, placing it on a canvas sheet to avoid leaving a mess. Then you dig. Once you hear the muffled thud of your wooden shovel hitting the coffin, a sound that makes your heart leap every single time, the real work begins. Using a small crowbar, you pry open just the top portion of the lid. It cracks with a sound like a breaking bone. Then you fasten a rope or hook around the neck and under the arms of the deceased and simply pull. The body, unresisting, slides out of its shallow tomb. The process, from first cut to extraction, can take a skilled team less than an hour. And here's the most crucial trick of all, the one that separates the professional from the felon. You strip the corpse completely. The shroud, any clothes, any jewelry, it all goes back into the coffin. You're not a thief. Stealing property from a grave is a hanging offense. But a body in the strange and murky eyes of the law, has no owner. It is a misdemeanor. You are a resurrectionist, not a grave robber. You pack the naked subject into your sack, refill the hole, and meticulously replace the sod. To the casual observer in the morning light, nothing is amiss. So, what is the verdict on your life? Were you a ghoul, a villain desecrating the dead for coin, or were you an unsung, grimy hero of medicine? The truth is, you were neither. You were a symptom of a society in radical transition, a society whose scientific ambitions had outpaced its ethics and its laws. You existed in the gruesome space between a sacred taboo, the sanctity of the dead, and a desperate, growing need, the knowledge to save the living. Your blunted shovel wasn't an instrument of pure evil. It was a crude tool created to solve a problem the gentlemen in their fine university halls refused to solve themselves. The era of the Resurrectionists was short-lived. Public outcry, especially after the infamous Burke and Hare murders where the supply chain turned from theft to homicide, forced Parliament's hand. The Anatomy Act of 1832 provided a legal supply of bodies, unclaimed paupers from workhouses, and in doing so, it put you out of business overnight. But did the dilemma truly disappear, or did it just change its clothes? Let's bring this into the sterile light of our world, the year 2025. Today we don't have body snatchers, but we debate the ethics of using unclaimed bodies for crash testing cars. We grapple with the morality of gene editing, of using embryonic stem cells, of posthumous organ donation. Every time you see that question on a driver's license application, do you wish to be an organ donor? You are facing the direct descendant of the resurrectionist dilemma. It is the same fundamental conflict, the sanctity of the individual body versus the progress of the collective. We've simply replaced the midnight shovel and the canvas sack with informed consent and complex legislation. But the question remains, haunting us from the 19th century grave: what are we willing to sacrifice for the sake of knowledge and the promise of a better future? Let us know your thoughts on this modern parallel in the comments below. Thank you for joining us on this descent into the shadows of history. The past is filled with these uncomfortable truths, with individuals forced into morally ambiguous roles by the pressures of their time. If you found this exploration compelling, please give this video a like and subscribe to Epoch Immersion for more deep dives into the lives you were never meant to see. Your support is what allows us to keep digging. And don't forget to click the notification bell, because our next journey takes us far from the gaslit alleys of Edinburgh to the windswept coasts of 10th century Iceland to uncover what it was really like to be a Viking seeress, a vulva who held the threads of fate in her hands. Until then, stay curious.